Ancient Rome, 44 BCE. The Ides of March approaches, a date that will forever change the course of history. On this fateful day, one of the most powerful men in Rome, Julius Caesar, will meet his untimely demise. But who was the man behind the legend, and how did his assassination lead to a lose-lose situation for all involved? Let's journey back in time to uncover the complex tale of ambition, betrayal, and unintended consequences. Picture a young Julius Caesar, born in 100 BCE to a patrician family. From his earliest days, he exuded a charisma and ambition that would define his life. With a sharp intellect and a remarkable memory, Caesar could recall the names and faces of thousands of his soldiers, a skill that would serve him well in both military campaigns and political maneuverings. But Caesar was a man of contradictions. The same brilliant mind that could devise complex military strategies was also plagued by vanity. So concerned was he about his receding hairline that he took to wearing a laurel wreath to hide it, a symbol that would later become synonymous with his rule. Caesar's ascent to power was accelerated by a crucial political alliance known as the First Triumvirate, formed in 60 BCE. This unofficial coalition united Caesar with two other powerful figures, Pompey the Great, Rome's most celebrated military commander, Marcus Licinius Crassus, reputedly the wealthiest man in Rome. Each brought something unique to the table: Caesar his political acumen, Pompey his military might, and Crassus his financial resources. Together, they could outmaneuver the conservative faction in the Senate, dominating Roman politics for several years. This alliance paved the way for Caesar's consulship and his subsequent command in Gaul. By 50 BCE, Caesar had been governor of Gaul for 8 years, leading successful military campaigns that greatly increased his wealth, power, and popularity. As Caesar's term in Gaul was ending, the Senate, growing wary of Caesar's influence, ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen, a customary practice for governors. However, this would leave Caesar vulnerable to prosecution by his political enemies. Faced with this threat, Caesar made the fateful decision to cross the Rubicon with his army, effectively declaring war on the Senate. Caesar's bold move plunged Rome into a brutal civil war. This conflict, fought between Caesar and his former ally Pompey, who now led the Senate's forces, would strain the very foundations of the Republic. Caesar's military genius prevailed, and with his victory at Pharsalus in 48 BCE, he became the undisputed master of the Roman world. Following his victory, Caesar campaigned across the Mediterranean, stamping out remaining opposition in Egypt, Asia Minor, Africa, and Spain. It was during this time that he famously became involved with Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. Their liaison not only produced a son, but scandalized Roman society. Returning to Rome in triumph, Caesar set about reforming the Republic. He had an uncanny ability to win the hearts of the common people, becoming a champion of the plebeians, Rome's lower classes. After his military victories, instead of hoarding the spoils, he distributed land to tens of thousands of poor citizens and veterans. He tackled debt relief, reducing debts by as much as 25% and protecting debtors from losing everything to their creditors. But Caesar's generosity didn't stop there. He organized lavish public games and feasts, entertaining the masses on a scale never seen before. He even had a new forum built, providing jobs and improving public infrastructure. Caesar understood that bread and circuses, combined with genuine economic relief, were a powerful tool for gaining public support. In the aftermath of the Civil War, Caesar was granted the position of dictator. In Roman times, a dictator was traditionally appointed in times of emergency, given absolute power to resolve a crisis, but only for a limited time, usually 6 months. However, Caesar's dictatorship was different. Initially appointed for 10 years, it was later extended to a lifetime position. As dictator, Caesar began to accumulate more honors and powers. He was named Father of the Country and Imperator, a title usually reserved for victorious generals, but which Caesar held permanently. His image appeared on coins, an honor previously reserved for gods and mythical heroes. He even had the month of Quintilis renamed Julius in his honor, which we still call July today. These actions, while popular with the masses, were seen by many senators as direct threats to Republican institutions. To understand why Caesar's actions were so controversial, we need to grasp the foundations of the Roman Republic. For nearly 5 centuries, Rome had prided itself on a system of shared power and checks and balances. At its core were two consuls, elected annually to share executive power, preventing any one person from dominating. The Senate, composed of aristocratic elders, advised on policy and managed state finances. Various assemblies gave citizens a voice in legislation and elections. This system was designed to prevent the rise of kings or tyrants, which Romans feared above all else. Power was meant to be temporary and distributed. So, when Caesar began to accumulate unprecedented authority and honors, many saw it as a direct threat to the very essence of the Republic. His actions, to them, weren't just political maneuvers. They were an assault on Rome's most cherished principles of governance. Among those growing increasingly concerned was Marcus Junius Brutus. To understand the depth of Brutus's eventual betrayal, we must look back to the very founding of the Roman Republic. In 509 BCE, Brutus's ancestor, Lucius Junius Brutus, led the overthrow of the last Roman king and established the Republic. This act made the Juni Bruti family name synonymous with republican values and resistance to tyranny. Now, 5 centuries later, Marcus Junius Brutus found himself facing an agonizing dilemma. He had a deep personal connection to Caesar, who had treated him almost like a son. Despite being on opposing sides during the Civil War, Caesar had pardoned Brutus and elevated him to high office. Yet, as Caesar's power grew, so did Brutus's fear that Rome was slipping back into monarchy. The weight of his family name and the expectations it carried proved too much to bear. As the Ides of March dawned in 44 BCE, a conspiracy came to fruition. Despite warnings and his wife Calpurnia's ominous dreams, Caesar attended a meeting of the Senate. As he entered the Curia of Pompey, he was surrounded by the conspirators. In a brutal and bloody attack, Caesar was stabbed multiple times. As the daggers plunged into Caesar's flesh, he fought back until his eyes met those of Brutus. In that moment, the great Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul and master of Rome, felt his world crumble. According to the historian Suetonius, Caesar's last words were, "Kai su teknon," you too, child, in Greek. This heart-wrenching scene captures more than just Caesar's final breath. It encapsulates the bitter sting of betrayal. But the assassination of Julius Caesar would have far-reaching consequences that none of the conspirators had anticipated. In a twist of irony, their actions would lead to the very outcome they had sought to prevent. The conspirators, who had hoped to restore the Roman Republic, found themselves vilified by the very people they claimed to be protecting. Mark Antony, one of Caesar's closest allies, seized the moment. In a masterful display of oratory at Caesar's funeral, he turned public opinion against the conspirators, whipping the crowd into a frenzy. What followed was years of civil war, pitting the forces of Brutus and Cassius against those of Mark Antony and Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian. In a final, bitter irony, it was Octavian who emerged victorious, becoming Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. The Republic, which had stood for centuries, was transformed into the Roman Empire, the very outcome the conspirators had feared most. In the end, the assassination of Julius Caesar proved to be a lose-lose situation for all involved. The conspirators lost their lives and their cause, Caesar's supporters lost their leader and the Republic they had known, and Rome itself lost years to civil war and political instability. As we reflect on this tumultuous period of history, we see echoes in our modern world. Charismatic leaders rising to power, the tension between populism and established political orders, and the often unforeseen consequences of drastic political actions. What parallels do you see between Caesar's story and our current political climate? Are there any Caesars in our world today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In our next video, we'll explore how Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, navigated the chaos following the assassination to become Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. How did this young man outmaneuver his rivals and transform the Republic into an empire? And how did Octavian change the course of Roman history forever? Stay tuned to find out. Don't forget to subscribe for more historical deep dives that shine a light on our present and future. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to reading your comments.